welcome to WKIM. We keep it moving. We are so excited tonight. We have a full show and we just can't get enough of this kind of interview. We have two different segments with two totally different programs, and they are very different but engaging and exciting. We open with author, consultant, and lecturer Sagar Constantine, and we stay tuned then for the second segment, which features recruitment specialist Rod Carter and his guest actors Jonathan Burke and Delante Desouza, who under Rod's leadership have gone through an extraordinary mentoring and empowerment program and are currently working very hard at their crafts as actors. So stay tuned for them. Our first guest is Sagar, and she is a best-selling Scandinavian author with more than 7 books. She writes stories that are both captivating but also highly inspirational. The In Between series came to Sagar on her way home from a business trip, and she instantly knew that this was a story that she had to share with the world. Her deep desire to bring awareness to the world is done most elegantly in these books, and she has a remarkable ability to make psychological issues easy to understand and comprehend. And through her readings, it is possible to grow inside and at the same time be highly entertained. She also is an international speaker and lecturer for businesses. Every year, she trains thousands of people in personal development, change management. I'm not sure what EQ is, so we're going to learn about that. And high performance teams. She teaches both leaders and employees how to become more aware. Her primary focus is personal growth, change management, motivation, positive psychology, and high performance teams. She motivates and engages her audiences with her passion and contagious energy. I'd like to introduce Sagar and Constantine. Hello.
Hello, hello, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh,
Wonderful.
and thank you from calling from Europe. This is wonderful that you spent taken the time to be with us. This is exciting. I'm happy that you're joining us.
Me too.
So there are two pieces that we have an hour. So I was thinking that the first part, we will talk about your books and why they were important to you. And in the last part of the hour, in the last half, I'd like for you to talk more about your consulting business, if that's okay
Absolutely.
with you. Does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
So y- you this came to you, these books. You had a very interesting experience. Can you talk about why these books were so important and how impactful they've been on your life?
Yes. Back, actually, it's quite a while now, but I used to work in television. I worked in Denmark at the biggest television station here as a director, and I had this feeling that I had to do something else with my life. I was highly successful, and I had a big career in television. Was doing a lot of big shows like the Tour de France cycling race, the Olympic Games, and stuff like that. And I decided to quit my job without knowing what to do.
Mm.
And I'm actually very good at starting up things, but this time I decided I wouldn't just invent something new or go and get another job. I just wanted to wait and see what kind of appeared. And I decided to go to India. I was going down there to a big meditation resort to teach, and on my way home I was sitting on the plane, and I was looking out the window, and suddenly I have this sensation in my body. My body starts to shiver, and a cold sensation is running down my spine. And I'm sitting there on the plane, and in front of me appears what seems to be like a big movie screen. And I'm looking around the plane going, am I the only one seeing this? And on this, what seems to be a movie screen in front of me, I see these images of different people. I see this highlights of a story that's inside the clouds. I also see a plane crash, which is not that great since I'm on a plane, but I'm sitting there and my body is still shivering. I'm looking around, and other people are just asleep or watching their tablet. And I'm going, what is this? This is so amazing. And it probably is going on for like 10, 15, 20 seconds. And then the shivering disappears, the image disappears. And I'm just sitting there on the plane going, wow, this is it. And I grab my laptop and I start writing what I saw. And I hear myself saying out loud, this is going to be at least 3 books. And then I look at what I wrote on my laptop, and I think I probably only wrote 6 or 7 lines. And I'm going, well, I'm going to figure it out. It will come to me, you know. And that was the moment where I just knew, this is the story I have to share. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This is if you believe in a sign, this is a sign from the universe that is trying to guide me. The time where, you know, I was in peace with myself, I was listening, and I was available. So I go home and I create a space to write, and I sit down, and every day ask just out loud, I say to myself, what is going to happen today? And the images come back and the story just unfolds, and all I have to do is keep up and write, and everything is just appearing in front of me.
You know,
So
I think that's real interesting too, because a lot of times we sit with something that we see or feel or believe or hear, and you know that I'm a Christian, so I know that it's Jesus talking to me, right? I'm hearing the voice of the Lord, and sometimes you don't know what to do with that because it's so big.
Yeah.
Right? It's so big. How do you
Yeah.
wrap around, put your arms around that? How do you pull that information together? Because you've got to acknowledge that you've heard it. And sometimes I've got all these different little binders, little books, that I buy, and I write these little notes, just little things. And now I'm proud of you because you've gotten all this inspiration and you've written 3 books. I'm sitting here thinking about all those journals that I have made notes in that I haven't done a daggone thing with. I need to get my act together, girl. You're an inspiration to me. For real.
I'm looking forward to reading your books,
Oh my goodness, girl. Okay, so I can't help it. I got to do this. I'm a very visual person. Now, this is just one cabinet. I have more.
Wow.
I have more.
Wow, Marsha, that is going to be more than 3 books, you know?
I have more.
Oh my God.
I'm going to stop there. Okay.
That's incredible.
So I just want you to know that you are my inspiration, girl.
I'm going to look out for those books, you know? Yeah, but it's so true. But also it can be frightening when you get messages like this. And I mean, you have all these notebooks where you keep all these beautiful messages that you got and inspiration. And I think, one thing is to get the inspiration, but I also think that we need to share it, because otherwise inspiration gets stuck, with us. So I believe in flow. If you get inspirations and things like that, I believe that you have to share it, because then we share awareness with other people and we inspire other people as well. So I think it's important, but we need to take the timing that is individual. So for some people like me, I started writing straight away. I just needed to get going. But also, for me, when I finished the first book, there's 3 of them at the moment, but when I finished the first one, I sent it straight off to a publisher. Then I began to write number 2, but I could feel this is not right. So I went for a walk on the beach, and then when I was walking on the beach, I had this voice saying to me, you have to give it away. And I was like, come on, I just spent all my saving, taking time off to write this book. I can't give it away for free. And the voice just kept coming back. And it was not, I'm sure you know the difference between your voice in your head and the voice, you call it from Jesus, from God, from the universe. It doesn't matter what we call this place, but it's different. It's got a different sound. And it kept saying to me, you have to give it away. And
Right.
I felt like putting my fingers in my ears going, I can't hear you,
Right, right, right,
you know.
right, 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 right. Not because you weren't ready. You didn't know if you were ready or not. It was a lot.
I was scared, I was
Uh-huh.
scared because I knew it would cost me a lot of money. I knew I hadn't had a job for some time
Mhm.
because I sold I'd quit my job, and and I knew also a part of me was scared of putting it out there, having
Mhm.
the fear of being successful, I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of different fears. But I got back home, I sat down and I said to myself, okay, so what will happen if I give it away? And then another vision came, and it was like, you have to go and stand on the street and hand the book over to other people. So, back in 2008, I printed 15,000 books. I shipped them from Denmark to Los Angeles, and I stood on the streets of Los
Wow.
Angeles and I handed out 10,000 books. But
Wow.
in Los Angeles, people hardly didn't want my books. So because they were saying, there's a few people coming up to me and saying, you're standing on a street, in Hollywood where there's 3 Scientology houses. People are a little bit, they think you're Scientology. They're not sure if they want your book.
Because
So
people
so
get
I was
real
like,
protective about their religious beliefs and being around that. You got to be
sure.
real sensitive, right?
Sure. And coming from Denmark, I wasn't aware of that. So I thought, well,
Mhm.
we have to, I mean, we do what we believe in. And I'm, I respect all kinds of religion, And I packed off my boxes and I went to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, people, they came to me and they got the book out of my hand. They just wanted the book. So it took me about a week to give away 10,000 books to people on the street. I did the same in London,
That's
in the UK.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's
and I just
amazing.
said,
Now, which book came first?
the life
Your life.
came first.
Okay, so
Yes.
this is in the order in which they appeared.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
it's very important also to read them in that order because it continues. So you don't want to read the Ring or the
Mhm.
Hope uh, at first. You have to read the Life.
Because the journey has to flow
Yeah.
properly,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's interesting that you actually made a decision that you were going to make an investment
Mm.
in this book, right? That it deserved that,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But you were a corporate person working in a television studio, and
Yeah.
now you're standing with boxes on the streets of LA,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. People
With
thought I was
some
crazy.
books and the box. Did you have a little table and some chairs or something with you? And
No,
and
no, we
no,
didn't.
you just stood there with the books and the boxes. So
Yeah.
and you're giving them away to people. I'd like to know some of the conversations that you had
Hmm.
with some of those people.
It was so touching because first of all, a lot of people just went past thinking, what is that? But
Mhm,
then people got more and more comfortable with me standing there, and they also saw that I didn't want anything in return because some
mhm.
people thought it was a scam, oh, she's just trying to sell you something. I didn't want anything in return. And actually, a few people came up to me and shared their experience about being in a coma. And in the book,
Mm.
the main character goes into a coma. And one person said to me, I've been in a coma. I know exactly what you're talking about. And
Wow.
one thing you have to remember with people in a coma, never put a headset on their ears because you can listen a lot more when you're in a coma. That's just the last sense that you actually lose. So never put music in people's ears when they're in a coma because they can listen as when they're in a coma as
They
well.
can still hear what's going on.
Exactly,
Oh, that's deep.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that either, and it was really good. It's in the books as well, so I got a
Mhm.
little bit of inspiration, and other people just looked me in the eyes and said, "Can I give you a hug?" And some people were crying because they realized it was straight from my heart. I didn't want anything in return. I just stood there and said, well, if you like the book, pass it on. And
Mhm.
what I did, I spent quite a lot of time, put a stamp in all of the books. All 15,000 books got a number, individual number. And there was a website and people could go and register and pass it on. And some of these books actually changed hands more than 10 times.
Are you
I
kidding me?
No, it's true. I had a person writing me. He wrote me from India, and he said, I was standing in the airport and there was a person in front of me reading your book. I just wanted to let you know it's in India. So it was incredible. Yeah.
That is a girl. That is so powerful.
Mm.
Really. I mean, just think about it. You get this unction to write this book, right? You
Yeah.
write the book, you leave Denmark, you move to California to make the distribution. Why California? What was the lead for that? There had to be some sort of bait, something that occurred for you to, you could have gone to New York or you could have gone
Yeah.
to Germany or
Yeah.
why LA? What?
Well, I was going to go to New York, but I don't know why I changed my mind. I just had this pull to California where I thought, the energy is
Different.
somehow different. I don't know. I
Mhm.
was just pulled to go there, and I spent all my money, so I didn't have any money left. So I went to the bank and said, can you, it was just before the financial crisis, and I said to them, I have this vision. I have to print all these books and I have to give them away. Can you lend me, let's say, $50,000? And the lady in the bank said to me, sure. I was like, okay, this is right.
Girl,
That's
that's
great.
hilarious. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute,
Yeah.
wait. So you walk into Bank of America or somewhere in LA
No,
and you
Denmark.
just
It
in
was
oh,
the
this
bank
was
in
in
Denmark.
Denmark. Okay, so
Doesn't
you're
matter.
in
Same
Denmark and
thing.
you said to Denmark Bank. Now, is this where you normally bank?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So they knew you. I was thinking you were in LA because that my
Ah,
brain couldn't wrap around that. So
sure,
you
sure.
went to your normal banker
Mm.
who got it, who
Yeah,
understood.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And
Mhm.
then, the money was spent because I had to live while I was writing the books, and so I ran out of money and I had to get all these books to LA. And I didn't know how to get them over there. So suddenly I bumped in, or maybe it was suddenly I bumped into to a former client of mine, and we just had a cup of coffee, and I told her about my idea, and I said, I need to get all these books to America, but I don't know how to do it. And she said, a friend of mine owns this shipping company. Why don't you give him a call? And I called him and he said, okay, if you come here and give a speech about change, we'll ship your books to LA for you for free. I thought, that's amazing. So
Mhm.
that's how it all,
It's like a
just
barter
unfolded.
system, right?
Yeah, yeah. So all the way, both in London, I had the journey over there with the ferry for free, and because they just wanted to help me out. So it all just unfolded, and people were just so kind and
Mhm.
helping me all the way through. So it's
Mhm.
really been an amazing journey. So that was the beginning of it all. Yeah.
And so 15,000 books,
Mm.
you're standing on a corner in LA and you're in your last box of books,
Yeah.
right? What's that reflection? What was that reflection on that experience and the people that you met and the conversations that you had, right? The shock and whatever else, right?
Yeah. The reflection was gratitude, because it was so amazing to stand there and have this feeling that I'd done what I was told to do. I shared the book. I stood up and lived my dream. I looked people in the eyes and said, I believe in this book. I believe that it's important to read this book. This is an important story for all of us because we need to live our lives now. We don't want to postpone it anymore. We need to be here right now when we have the chance. So it's important to read this book. And that was the message that I passed on, and I was able to share and feel the gratitude also from the people who actually got the book, and also to read online the reviews afterwards, where people were like, I thought this book was really crap since she was giving it away for free. Nobody was giving anything
Right,
away
right,
for
right.
free
So
back then.
LA. So LA. Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But today a lot of people are giving stuff away for free, but
Mhm.
14 years ago people didn't do that. There wasn't
Mhm.
this pass it on movement. I was
Right.
before that. So so I was just full of gratitude. I was like, wow. And I was like, okay, so now I don't know what's going to happen because I'm out of money. I have to go and make a living, now. And then I'll just see what is going to happen. And I started to write the second book, but then there was a few bumps on the way, a few divorces and a few marriages. And I had to learn my lesson in life around other issues. So it took me quite some time to finish book number 2 and book number 3.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
I understand that journey, and so, when you circle back around there, right, you're now looking at The Ring, and so how different is that from that initial book? You're no longer on a plane, you're
Mm.
in Denmark, right? You're functioning, but it came to you that you should be expelling all of this that you've had pent up for a while, so there's something that left that last book wanting for more.
Yeah. You know, even though it has taken me many years to complete these 3 books, they always been sitting with me. I knew one lesson for me to learn was to be patient,
Mm,
um, not to push, to wait till it was ready to pull it down from somewhere. So I had to be patient, and I had to learn stuff in my life as well. And also, whenever I was about to lose faith, the universe would give me a sign, and the most significant sign I got, it's very personal, but I would like to share it with you. It
sure.
was I was I was sitting in my office, and I got this email from a lady I didn't know, and she wrote to me and she said, I have this urge to share my experience with you. My brother and my son went to Croatia this summer. It was some years ago. And she said in the email, she said, unfortunately, they were in an accident and they both died.
Mm,
They fell from a cliff. And she said, of course, it's painful, my son and my brother. But she said, my son's girlfriend went to this psychic person and she doesn't believe in anything out of the ordinary. She's not spiritual, she's not religious, she's nothing. But a friend told her to go there to get advice on her career. She's sitting with this psychic person, and the person is saying to her, there's somebody here in the room. He wants to contact you. And he says he died recently. And this young girl, she's only 25, she said, what is this? And the psychic person is saying, do you know anybody who just passed away? And she said, yes, my boyfriend just passed away, but I don't believe in anything like this, she said. And the psychic person is saying, he's got a message for you and he's asking me to pass it on. Do you want it? And the girl said, she said, yeah, sure, give it to me. And he said, you need to go and look for a book. It's about something with the in between, and the author's name is a little bit strange. It's something with Saga. It's not a Danish name, but you need to look this up, he says. And when you read the book, you will know where he is, and you will know he's fine. And she went online, she searched, she found the life. She
mhm,
read it, and she gave it to his mother, and she was
mhm,
the one writing me and saying, thank you for letting me know where my son is and that he's fine.
mhm. That's
And
deep.
that is deep. And in that moment, I just knew the power of these books.
Mhm,
That getting a message from a person that left this world, telling another person to read the book to understand where he is. It was.
mhm.
I was deeply touched, and I just knew. I have to get
Stay
on
the
track
course.
and
Yes, stay
finish
the
these
course.
books. Yeah,
Stay the course. And
exactly.
and and so you have 3 books in the trilogy. So it's The Life, The Ring, and The Hope,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, first, before we go to the next phase, how do people purchase that book?
Well,
Those books?
yeah, you can get them anywhere. Get them Barnes and Nobles. You can get them on this audiobooks. You can get them on Amazon. But
Mhm.
I would like for your audience to get the life for free. So I made a link so they can get the life for free if they like. If you feel
Okay.
like sharing it with them, you can do that.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'll get the
So
link and put it in my next newsletter, and
sure.
so people can get it from there.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
wonderful, that's wonderful. So, there's another part of you that is a lot more, um, confined, right? And, back to your corporate roots.
Yeah.
And let's talk about this whole being of, you're an expert on leadership, personal development, positive psychology, high performance teams. That's
Mm,
huge today. I'm
mm.
not sure what EQ is.
It's emotional intelligence.
Intelligence. Okay.
Yes.
And change and motivation. So we know that those are some of the experts, but you also are an international speaker. So let's talk about what you have been doing as a lecturer with some of these businesses in personal development and high performance, because a lot of corporations are looking today to have somebody give them guidance on how the world is
Mm,
changing tremendously, and how to sustain their businesses and to maintain their corporate employees.
mm. You know, the way I work with businesses is usually sometimes, I go for, I'll do a speech for an hour, sometimes
Mhm.
for 3 hours, sometimes for a whole day. But with the high performance, I always do more sessions with the businesses. And what I find is it's a lot to do with awareness, becoming aware of how we listen to each other, how we talk to each other, how patterns we have in our way of behaving and how we see each other. The way we work together has a lot to do also with emotions. We get caught up in our emotions very often and think that that's the whole truth about what I'm saying and what I'm believing in. And we have all these things that we kind of think assumptions that we think we hear what other people are saying, but it's an assumption that we made ourselves. So, I try to help people become more aware of how they are, how they act,
Mhm.
and how they function. I do a lot of teaching about the brain, so people find out, how much capacity do I actually have in the brain, which is really interesting. We have three parts of the brain: the reptile brain, which is, it's just, fight, fleet, or run away,
Mhm.
and then we have the emotional brain with all our emotions. But the most interesting part of our brain is the newest part that has to do with all reasoning, all new learning. If you want to change behavior, you only have 33 minutes every day to do this. And
Hmm.
that is pretty scary, actually. That tells us a lot about why the world looks as it does today, because
Right.
yeah, we only have 33 minutes to think out of the box, to reason, to make behavior changes, to do something that we're not doing on an ordinary basis. So everything that falls back to what we know already is kind of free to the brain,
Mhm.
but everything we have to do out of the ordinary, you cannot do that a lot. And we definitely can't do it after 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then, we just fall back on our normal behavior. So,
So in looking at that, too often when in a corporate environment, and so I've been in a large corporation to small business, right?
mm,
And too often, we have these senior executives who have this big idea, right?
mm,
That it's a big idea.
yeah.
But but when they were thinking about this big idea, they weren't really thinking about how do you measure that and how do
Mm,
you distill it for people to be able to get their arms around it and to make it occur, right?
mm,
Then now we're in the middle of COVID and the whole world has changed. The whole from agriculture to high tech, the businesses, everybody's in a huff. They don't know what to do.
mm.
How do you manage that process while maintaining that bottom line?
Well, it's the most important thing here is, of course, to understand if the top level, the CEOs, has some visions that they believe they want to push through, and it doesn't fall through down through the layers of the business. Then you have to talk to people about, well, what can you do in the position that you are in, and the stronger relationships you have in your teams, the easier it is to
Mm.
implement the strategies, but also talk about what is hard about this. Because one thing is to say, well, we want to do this, but we have to approach also what are my fears around this. I usually work with, fear and trust, and you can
Mm.
always ask people, well, if we to do this, are you coming from fear or are you coming from trust? And most people usually come from fear of not being good enough, fear of not being included, fear of missing out, fear of losing your job, fear of becoming old and not fitting in anymore.
Mm.
There's so many
Irrelevant.
fears. Exactly. And when you approach those fears and you talk about it, it's much easier to actually work together and move forward and say, okay, so with what we have, if we shift our focus, instead of focusing on what we can't do and what is hard and we don't have enough time, we don't understand why they want to do this, it's a bad timing, it's a bad
Mhm.
solution, they didn't ask us on the floor, they just push it through, what can we do with the resources that we do have? So instead of moaning about what we cannot do, shift the focus to what resources do we have? And I think that's one thing everybody can do. Look at the focus. Where's my focus on what I can't do and what I fear? Or can I shift my focus and ask myself, what resources do I have to make this change? What is
Mhm.
difficult? I can ask a question. Maybe I can do a course. I can ask my team colleagues for help. We can work together. There's so many things we can do, but the fear is what we have to look at, because the
Mhm.
fear is ruining everything.
Mm.
So, and as long as we don't talk about what we're afraid of, it will hold us back from moving forward. It's very important.
And sometimes people don't even want to deal with that word called pivot,
Mm,
right? It's
mm,
very difficult in many corporate settings for people to understand, because you have too many part members of a team who 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 use the terminology too often, is, but we've always done it like this.
yeah.
We've always, and to get people out of that corridor
Mm,
that has no exit signs,
yeah.
how do you bring them into 2023 when they're stuck in 2010?
Yeah. Well, there's always a reason why people are stuck, and it is fear. It's very, very simple. I mean, people sometimes ask me, "Oh, it must be complicated to work with other people. People are so different. They're so, hard to figure out." But I think human beings are very easy to work with, because we're all the same. We have 7 basic emotions, and it's those emotions that kind of hold us back. And if we know the emotions and we know how people react, you'll also see people that are held back in 2010. What are they afraid of? They could be afraid of a new IT system. They can be afraid of not fitting in. They can be afraid of so many things. And if you reach out and say, hey, you want to come over on my side where we look at the positive stuff,
Right.
and you invite them and you ask them, what do you need? How are you? And you look them in the eyes and you make them feel safe, and create a trusting environment where it's actually okay to say, well, I think this is difficult, or I'm a little bit scared here. Then we can actually transform in a few seconds what has been stuck for years. And that's what I find when I walk into a room and I work with these teams. I my main focus is to create trust, because I know if I create trust, people will tell me what's wrong. If you have a team where they don't talk to each other, they talk behind each other's back, they talk to other people about what's wrong, there's no trust. And then I cannot move any teams. I cannot create high performance teams. The basic of a high performance team is trust. So we need to build the trust first, and then we can open up and talk about, okay, what's difficult here? What are we afraid of? Because if we approach that, it usually only takes, a few minutes, at the most 10 minutes. And then we can actually start to look at the solution and what are we going to do about it? So usually it's more simple to approach it than to avoid it, because avoiding it means that it just grows bigger and bigger, and then we'll have all these negative people. I believe, and from what I'm seeing, I'm dealing with hundreds of people every single week in
Mhm.
corporations in Denmark, from companies like Lego to other huge companies. And what I see is that negative people who are unhappy, is the biggest problem. People are not happy when they go to work. And I think it's such
Mhm.
a waste of time. If you go to work and you're not happy there, we definitely have to do something about that, because we
Oh,
should all be happy when you go to work.
no question. And I've been in too many environments where there's a lot of negativity,
Mm,
and that negativity rolls over to other people. But Mike, always wonder when you look at leaders who do not actually see that there is this negative
mm.
um, aspect to a person. I think they're so busy trying to be positive that they're not being realistic
Yeah.
about some of the people who may have been there for 20 years or who may have been there 30 years. They're not ready to retire and they may not need to retire, but rather there needs to be some sort of educational consulting that
Mm,
helps them come into the 21st century to see the possibilities opposed to harboring the anger because they got passed over for a promotion or because their idea wasn't adopted. How do you manage with their, I'm certain you've had those experiences
sure.
with some of the retreats that you've done with some of those. Can you talk about that? Because that has just been a little burr in my side.
But I think you have a very important point there, because some people has adopted this attitude, some leaders, we just need to be positive. But
Mhm,
the thing is, if it's not natural just to be positive. The brain has two sides. It has the positive and the negative. We got the negative side of our brain to survive. If I don't have my fear and my negativity, I will not see, the whatever can kill me. that's
mhm,
that's why we got that side. So we need that to level up the positive as well. But we have to train our brain. We can actually train the brain to be more positive. But we have, with the 7 emotions that we got, we have 5 emotions on the negative side. And if we don't acknowledge that we have fear, we have anxiety, that we might sometimes feel uncomfortable. If we don't acknowledge that, if we just say, well, that doesn't matter, just pull yourself together, then you will lose people, like you're saying.
mhm.
So when we lose people back in 2010, it's because we didn't acknowledge the emotions that they were sitting with. And then we have to reach out and say, hey, you know I want to build a bridge for you, but you also have to take responsibility. And that's another point. When people become negative, they stop taking responsibility. They blame other people for the position that they're in. So the first step is also to say, I want to help you, but you have to be a part of it. I cannot move you by myself. I always say
Right.
that to people, and I confront
Mhm,
people. I have this term. I say, are you on the green path or on your red path? The red one is negative, the green is the positive. So in our brain, we're wired with positive paths and negative paths, and you can create more positive green paths in your brain, and it will be easy to be positive, but the red ones will always be there. So I
mhm,
always say to people, I, from my point of view, I see that you're stuck on the red path, but I want to help you, but you definitely have to do some of the work yourself. But I'm here, you can talk to me. I will give you responsibility. I will invite you to come over here to the positive side. So I will include you in the assignments. I will ask for your advice. I will listen to your suggestions, but you have to take responsibility. And if
mhm.
you don't, I'm sorry to say, you don't belong in this team, because a high performance team, we cannot have people that doesn't take responsibility. So it's very, very important that we also demand that people take responsibility. You can't just sit back and say it's other people's fault. It's not my fault. I was left here in 2010. It's my I can sit here and that's just
Wallow.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So
I think we did a retreat with this organization that I was a part of. And during that whole conversation, there were people who were, no matter what was put up on the board, they have those little sheets of paper and they end up having 9,000 of them in the room, right? And
Yeah.
so you get to go up and write what your thoughts are on whatever the topic is there.
Mm,
And then afterwards you do an assessment of whatever you've seen on this big sheet, right? So we see all the stuff on the sheet, and then you get to go up there, but now as you're walking up there, you got to read all that stuff. You're reading what other people wrote. And
mm,
so too often you end up just, and I'm just observe, I just like to watch people, right? That's just a thing I do. And you can see that there's a discomfort sometimes
mm,
because people don't even want to share their easiest thoughts, or they're afraid to have an opinion and to share that opinion. But moreover, to take a marker and literally go up to the board and write it.
mm.
And so, how do you deal with the vulnerability of those people and have them still feel confident about what they're writing on that board? What that takeaway has been, because they haven't always used their voice
Mm.
or taught how.
Yeah, I think what is important here is to come back to the leadership, but because it all falls back on the leader to create the trusting environment. But what I would also do if I had a team where people were afraid to be vulnerable, because it's so important. We cannot connect if we don't allow ourselves to become vulnerable. So I would start to have one-on-one sessions every week. I
Mm,
tell all the teams that I work with, do a one-on-one walk and talk for 10 minutes with every single person in your team to build up trust, to get to know each
mm,
other. Because if you do that, you'll start to talk about not just work, but also your kids and your dog and your cat and whatever. And you'll get to know each other and you'll trust each other even more. Then, of course, you also sit down with your team and you start to have this conversation about how are you, not just what work are you doing. I would say you have to every single week with the team as well. Don't just talk about your work, talk about the human part of the way you work together, because it's so easy to also, when you do this walk and talk, to say, how's this assignment going? And for the 10 minutes every single week, you only talk about how you're doing. Okay. So how do you feel? Are you comfortable in this team? Is there anything you want to say to me as a leader that I can do better? Do you have some feedback or whatever it is? So it's a
mhm,
personal conversation to build up trust. And that is a great stepstone for these teams to actually start functioning. As you say, if you put all these post-its up there, we need to include everybody. But some people, because we're different personality types, some people are a little bit more slow and others are fast movers, and we have to have all different personality types to work together, because then we get the high performance teams. But this one-on-one 10 minutes every week, and you do that in a process, I would say 2 to 3 months. It's an investment in the people that you're working with, but what it also gives you is a stronger relationship and the ability to hold on to the skilled employees at a time where we need people to stay in their jobs. They have a lot of knowledge. We need to hold on to people, and relationships is the greatest tool to hold on to your employees, and also to attract more employees to your teams as we need them.
that was something I think you hit on. You have to retain the people that you have. You
Yeah,
can't keep just letting people go, because now you've lost all of that information. You
exactly.
know, I mean, you talk about a book, you have a person that's been there 25 years or 20 years or 10 years, and all of a sudden they're gone, and there's no closing that leaves the company with an exit strategy, and they leave because they're disgusted, and they don't leave any information,
Yeah,
because you've treated them so badly. They said, whatever, if you can find it, you go ahead, and if it's in that file, or I may have just thrown it away because you didn't respect me enough or
yeah,
care enough about me as a
yeah.
human being first.
Exactly.
right?
So human first. And also, I mean, one thing is that they leave with a lot of knowledge. The other part is it's so expensive for the companies to recruit another person. You have this gap of time where you're missing a person and missing the knowledge before somebody has been trained to do the job again. And the greatest way to get people to stay is to have a good relationship. So we want to stay where we feel good. It's not about the money. Money is a great thing. We need money to survive and to buy food and pay our rent, but it's not the reason that we stay in a company. It's not a motivational factor. Relationships, personal growth, responsibility, those are the things we should focus on, because that's where people grow inside and want to stay in the companies. So that's where to focus if you're a leader, for sure.
But I think sometimes leaders don't understand how to lead.
That's true. That's true. And that's a whole different story, because you have to be brave as a leader, because as a leader you also have to be vulnerable and be able to share your emotions and make mistakes, and at the same time have the courage to take responsibility. But another thing that I find a lot is that actually, especially new leaders, they are afraid of handing out responsibility to other people. They think they have to do everything themselves, because
Mhm.
I do it my way, I do it the best way, I know best, whatever. But the greatest thing a leader can actually do is trusting other people with responsibility,
Yeah.
because then other people grow as well, and they will stick in your team. So of course, I mean, I've seen a lot of people become leaders where I thought, wow, they were great specialists, and then they became leaders. That's how it is. Doesn't mean because you're a great specialist you will become a great leader. It's to become a great leader, you definitely have to work with yourself and your personal development. Otherwise, you cannot lead other people, because you need to know your emotions. You need to know how you react. You need to know how you motivate other people, how you create a team, how you work with people. You have to have the courage to listen to other people and not just talk yourself as well. So
Well,
it's a great ability to listen as a leader. It's,
it
it's
is
very important.
sometimes these egos get in the way.
Oh my God.
Right? So now we've got I'm the CEO, I'm this or the CFO or I'm the COO or I'm the whatever
Yeah.
and chief financial officer. I'm all these things, right?
Yeah.
And you can't tell me anything.
No.
Just do what I say. Just do what I say. And
Yeah.
you're not allowing the team to be able to grow and to give you what you want to
Mm,
help the company grow the way it needs to.
exactly.
How do you work with the HR people
Mm,
who are sometimes they are strong enough to deal with the CEO and far too often they're not?
exactly. I was just going to say, I work with this huge shipping company here in Denmark, and it's an international company. And the CEO of this company, he was people. Let me just say, people were afraid of him.
Mhm.
They didn't want to ask any questions in his presence, and I was taking in as a consultant, and I was working with HR. I've been working with this company for 5 years now, with all their leaders, with all their employees, and also in the leader group. And this CEO, he came up to me one day and he said to me, Sakar, why aren't any of the leaders asking any questions when we're sitting together? And I looked him in the eyes and I said, you know why? Because they're afraid of you.
Mm.
And he was like, excuse me? And I said, you asked me, that's the answer. And I knew he could just, say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And he said, is that true? Are they afraid of me? I said, they're afraid of you. They're afraid that you will talk down to them, that you will humiliate them, that you will just, run over them, and that's why they're not saying anything. And he was like, okay, that's interesting. And the next, we went into a meeting just 5 minutes later, and there was 20 leaders in there, and he opened up and he said, okay, Saka just told me that you're afraid of me. That's why you're not asking any questions. And everybody was going, excuse me. And he retired 6 months ago, and he called
Why?
me. yeah, well, he called me and he said, Sagan, I just retired and this business was just going up and up and up, with COVID, all the passes that were sent around the world. So they were doing great. And I said, yeah, I've been wondering why you retired. You're doing so well. And he said,
Mm,
I've been sitting, listening to you talking to our leaders. And one thing I heard you say is, if you find that you become a grumpy old man, you should
mm,
definitely retire. And he said, I went to ask one of the other CFOs or whatever he was, and he said, I asked him, did I become a grumpy old man? And the other guy, he said, no, 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 because he was also afraid of him.
right.
And he said, but I was, and I knew he was because the employee started telling me. And he said, but I've been listening to you, so I quit my job. And I just want to tell you that I heard what you're saying and I'm doing fine. And I think the business will do fine without me. So thank you very much for putting into my attention that you have to leave in time before it really gets bad,
Wow.
So he was really brave. And
That's huge.
it is huge, and I was like, wow, because he was so ignorant. I thought he never heard anything that I actually told him,
Mhm,
So I was really
mhm.
surprised. But it is hard and it takes courage. And I think, to answer your question with HR, it takes courage from HR, because in HR you're also in a position where you're also below the CEO, so that something is at stake. If you step up and tell the people above you with
Right.
higher authority, you have to talk to the employees in a different way. You have to listen to them in a different way, or we need to put money over here to have some personal development, whatever it is. It's a risk, but I think we need to take that risk. We need to take it for our own sake, but also for our colleagues' sake, because sometimes, coming back to the leaders that are also always positive, we need to tell them it's not just great. It's not
Right.
just positive. Somebody has to speak up. Otherwise, we cannot change anything if we just sit back and say, well, it's not my responsibility to tell them. It is. I could just, come into this company and walk out again. I will still get paid. But I just felt the responsibility to go up to this person and say, the leaders are scared of you. You have to change.
Right.
Otherwise, this is no good. I can't help you if you don't change. How can I help the rest of them?
Mhm. And that's huge. I had an employer once that, and I see him, you couldn't tell him anything, girl. You could just say, the sky is falling, and all of a sudden you see the clouds dropping on the linoleum or something, right? Um, but the ego gets so far in the way
Mm.
because you've got this power
Yeah,
that you are missing all of the pieces that are necessary in order for you to be able to be successful. And
yeah,
you sit in these round tables, in a board meeting or whatever, and your people are afraid to talk
yeah,
because you've instilled fear in them and they don't want to lose their job. So
yeah,
then they end up quitting. So now you've lost all that money investment in building up that individual, getting them all the things that are required for them to do their job, only for you to destroy it because you've belittled them, you've spoken to them horribly, the
yeah.
tone of voice is disrespectful, and you're dismissive.
Mm.
And I had that employer when I quit my job. I said, "Who? I don't know who would want to work for you. I don't want to work here for you anymore because you're not nice.
Mm.
You're not nice." And that's ignorant to me. So you
Yeah,
have all these people who could be helping you, but you've turned everybody off. And
yeah,
they don't want, they're just taking home the check now. They're
yeah.
taking home the check. So in looking at this, one of the things that I always wondered is, when is it enough
Mm.
for an employee to be able to sit and have a conversation with a CEO or their immediate manager where you're able to be honest?
Mm.
And how do people who are listening, how do you create the environment for that manager or that CEO or that vice president to be able to hear you and not themselves and their own ego, because they're so busy trying to think what they're going to answer that
Mm.
they haven't even heard what you had to say.
Yeah. And there's your answer, because it starts with the CEO. It starts with the leaders. They if they don't want to listen, you can't
Mhm.
get through, because everything that you're saying, they won't hear it. So we have to be able to have the courage to listen to what other people are saying. And we might not like it, but if we say, well, okay, I hear what you're saying, I will digest it, I'll find out if I can use it, how I can process it. But we have to listen to other people and build that trust, because it doesn't come from one day to another. As I say, take these walks, 10 minutes walk, and look at do it with your team, and the leader does it with that leader's person, and that leader does it with the CEO, or what, and the leader, the CEO does it with the board. So you do
Mhm.
it in the hierarchy that you're in. And then we start to build trust and share information that is crucial for this company to work and to function in the future. If we don't have this trust, we won't get what you're saying, and then people will leave. And then they say, well, I don't care, I'm not even going to tell you why I'm leaving, because uh, why waste my energy on you? You're not even listening. So
Right.
yeah, so we have to listen, and we have to be willing. We have to be
Mm.
willing to make it work, and we have to be interested in people, not just results. We have to. I mean,
Mhm.
it's people that create the results. I mean, it's not the machines, it's not the technology, it's the people that create results. So if we're not interested in people, we cannot be leaders.
Mm.
It's so simple. So
That's
it
deep though. Wait, say that one more time. If we're not interested in people.
we cannot be leaders. It's impossible.
Mhm. Mhm. And
Yeah.
too often people think that they are the only voice that needs to be heard.
Yeah. And that couldn't be further away from the truth, because, I mean, perspective is always great. Nobody holds the truth.
Mhm.
So, and never
Mhm.
ask a question that you have the answer for. Never ask a question, because it's a waste of other people's time. But also, I mean, that's what
No,
leaders
wait,
do.
wait, girl. My ex-husband said, "I don't ask no question you don't plan to do anything about."
Yeah, yeah. But also keep in mind, with change, we do
Mhm.
not change before that the fear of what we're about to do is less than the pain that what we're in. So the
Mhm.
pain of what I'm in right now has to
Mm.
be less than what I'm afraid to move towards. So it's always the balance about, I'm in pain. Let's say I'm in a job. I'm afraid of my leader. I don't dare to say anything. How painful is it compared to the fear of being out of job, being afraid of not getting paid? So as long as my fear of what I'm moving towards is greater than the pain I'm in, I'm not making a change.
Mhm. And
And
that's
that,
huge.
yeah,
That's huge. And we've run out of time, but let me tell you, give us some closing remarks and how people can get in touch with you.
sure. You can always get in touch with me on all the social media, Saga Constantine, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You're always welcome to write me, and on my website sagaconstantine.com. So anytime people can write me if they have questions or remarks, or if they want to have a free book. But you got the link for the free book now, so
Yes.
yeah, and
Okay.
I hope people will enjoy it. I
Well,
hope
we'll
they will
make
read
certain
it
that
and enjoy
we'll
it.
distribute that.
Thank you so
Cigar
much.
Constantine, thank you so much for coming. And this has been a while. We finally made it happen. Thank you so much. And now I'm gonna
Thank
have to
you.
come over to Denmark and visit you sometime.
That would be wonderful. You're always
I've
welcome.
never been to Denmark. We need to think about that. Me and my
There you
family.
go. You have to
All
come.
right. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Sagar Constantine, thank you very much. And here's the website. Make certain that you go and get these free books, they'll be wonderful. And we'll be right back with our next guest. We have a whole crew of people. It includes three extraordinary gentlemen who've made their mark in the world, originating from Baltimore. These amazing gentlemen will share their story and journey to success. And our first guest will be Rod Carter, is a 1976 graduate of Babson College that is located in Wellesley. Massachusetts. He was an interdisciplinary management studies major. Currently, he's the recruitment specialist, college relations for Career Communications Group. And previously, he was a program coordinator for Project Raise, Bethel and Children's Services Pathway to Manhood, and co chair of the Black Professional Men's Scholarship Program. He's proud of the fact that the scholarship program produced a Rhodes and Fulbright scholar and NFL operations member, 4 MBAs, 3 doctors, 4 lawyers, and 2 actors. And our first actor, we have 2 actors that are going to be on. And our first is Jonathan Burke, who began his acting training in high school at the Baltimore School for the Arts and ultimately received a BFA in musical theater from Ithaca College. He can be seen as Eric on Amazon Prime's Harlem and has been seen on NBC's New Amsterdam and on Hulu's Only Murders in the Building. On Broadway, he appeared as a leading role, Ferris Jonathan Young, in The Closing Company of Choir Boy, as young man Five Toby's agent, Charles Willocks, in the original Broadway cast of the best play, Tony Award winning The Inheritance, and was a member of the original Broadway cast of Tuck Everlasting. Jonathan was seen off Broadway as Elsie in Tony Stone at the Roundabout Theater Company, Laura Pell's Theater as priest judge in Joan of Arc, Into the Fire at the Public Theater, and as a junior addict in Langston in Harlem at Urban Christmas. Oh no, Urban Stages. His tour credits include Mary Poppins, A Christmas Story, the musical, Joseph, and Cats. Regionally, he's appeared across the country at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, Berkeley Syracuse Stage for the Repertory Theater, Goodspeed Opera House, Syracuse Stage, for which he won a SALT Award, for leading actor in a musical as Bert in Mary Poppins, the Mooney Portland Center Stage, Baltimore Center Stage, the Studio Theater, the Hangar Theater, the MGR Playhouse, the Broad Stage, and the Virginia Stage Company Facebook. And he's on Twitter, Jonathan Burke. It's on Burke, and Instagram, it's Jonathan Burke. We also have Delante Desouza, native to Baltimore and a graduate of University of Maryland at College Park. Desouza studied acting with the late Robert F. Chu, The Wire, at Baltimore's historic Arena Players, while at U of M, Desouza was a recipient of Maryland's prestigious Howard P. Rollins Guaranteed Access Grant and was chosen to participate in the 6-day leadership program, an institute that challenges participants to lead with integrity while working towards a vision grounded in their deepest values. Delante has a BS in computer science, and he can still hardly believe he made the jump from digital marketing specialist to a starring role in the new HBO series about the LA Lakers. It's almost doesn't still feel real to me. And I know that's crazy to say after 2 years on this project. He said it just feels like I'm that same kid who was at CMSC 131 walking to class at UMD. He pursued acting as a hobby during his years at Maryland, plays legendary shooting guard Michael Cooper in Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, and the 10-episode series chronicling the meteoric rise of the Lakers in the 80s premiered in March 2022 on HBO and HBO Max streaming service. We could be twins in another life for Desouza. This very unexpected turn of events began in Baltimore. Real estate company, still interested in acting. He was scrolling through a website called Actors Access when the ad caught his attention. He saw this posting that said they were looking for a guy 6 feet or taller who plays basketball and looks like this real life person, Michael Cooper. He recalled he looked at the picture and he said, okay, wow, he and I look pretty similar. We could be twins in another life. Just for fun, he responded with his headshot, thinking it was probably some kind of a scam. But later on, he found out, to his amazement, the casting director for the Lakers series contacted him and Now the rest is history. Let us welcome our three guests, Delante Desouza and Jonathan Burke and Mr. Rod Carter. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello. How's everybody?
Hey,
I
it's been
think we have one more person.
here goes
There
Jonathan.
we go.
There we
Hey,
go.
Hi.
this is exciting. I want you guys to know that Rod Carter has worn me out. He couldn't wait to get you two on here.
Glad to be here.
So, Rod, start off and introduce the two guys and why it was so important that you wanted them to be interviewed. And you've been doing a lot with them, with Black professional men and your mentoring. Can you talk about that and why it's so important?
Sure. First, I'm going to start with Jonathan. Jonathan and I have a very unique history, being the fact that I recruited his father to Babson College, and he was like the little brother that was a pain in the butt. But at the same time, he was the student that from Baltimore, I recruited another student from Baltimore. He was the one that put it all together. I mean, he had the looks, he had the brains, he had the personality. And fortunately, Gary left us Earth about a year and a half ago, and but Jonathan, I followed him while he was in school when he went to Ithaca College. Jonathan actually came back and participated in our Rays of Hope breakfast twice, and I've been following him ever since then. Of course, I saw him perform in the choir boy in D.C. He had a very unique role, which caught me off guard. And then when everything happened in New York, it was just what could you ask for? I think the funny story Jonathan and I always talk about, in showbiz you always say break a leg, and Jonathan will tell you more about that story about breaking a leg in reference to how he actually had to sit out a performance because in fact he actually broke his ankle 2 weeks before the performance. But anyway, Jonathan, what more can I say about Jonathan? When I saw him perform the first time at a theater up in New York, it put chills to me because I was in the balcony. I could just look back and saw what he was about to do. And then it took it to another level when he actually performed live on the Tony Awards for a choir boy. Actually, you could see his influence regarding that whole dance routine because his brother's the Kappa and made comments about that regarding certain steps. Delante, what more can I say about Delante? Polygrad. I met Delante in 2012, and we just clicked from day one. A very unique individual. Like Jonathan, has a beautiful spirit, a beautiful heart. And when everything happened for him going off to college, some things that happened regarding that, and Delante might tell the story about what happened when he was going down to A&T because I shocked him how I did my performance to get him on the bus. But anyway, while he was in college, he still stayed with his craft. He loved the arts, and like he said the story, everything just came out of nowhere. He called me up and said, "MSC, you won't believe someone wants me to be in this series about a basketball team in the '80s." And I said, "Let me see. You had the Knicks and the Celtics in the '70s, and you had the Bulls in the '90s." I said, "Oh my God, the Lakers?" He said, "Uh-huh." I said, "Well, it's not Magic Johnson." He said, "No." I said, "Well, he either be Michael Cooper or James Worthy, but James Worthy got caught with the prostitutes." "Oh, I can deal with that." I said, "No, no, no, no. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that." But anyway, but anyway, I was fortunate when I went out to California twice. We kind of crossed paths, and I'm just proud of what he's been able to accomplish, both of what they've been able to accomplish in a short period of time. So that's my stay about those guys. And Marsha, you take it from there.
So I think it's really wonderful. First of all, first, second, third, and fourth of all, I'm very excited for you and your careers and all that you're accomplishing. Is just tremendous. And, I know that Baltimore is still home. It'll always be home. But, I'm glad that you guys are taking advantage of all of the opportunities that are being presented to you. What I'd like for you guys to do is let's talk about what made you both go into acting. What happened in your life to all the thousand things that you can do? What made you decide acting was the place you needed to be? You want to start, Jonathan?
Sure, yeah. I have a very distinct memory of when I decided I wanted to be an actor. It was at Cardinal Sheen School on Loch Raven Boulevard in the 6th grade. There was a teacher there named Kenyatta Hardison, and she was the music teacher for the school and the drama teacher as well and the choir director. And I had always loved to sing. Like in church, I would sing in the choir, but it was kind of just for fun. I didn't know that that was something you really could do as a career or something. So when I went to this school for middle school, they had a choir, and so I auditioned. You had to audition to be in the choir. Audition. You just had to sing for her, and of course she let everyone in. But she just wanted to place you and see how good you were. So I sang, and she was kind of blown away that I was very good. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, well, I do this musical every year. Would you audition to be in it? Like, you have to do this. I think you really got something special. So this was a musical that she had created called Motown Spectacular. She wrote this musical about all these Motown artists and the creation of Motown. And so we all played these artists. And so I ended up getting cast in that as Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson and some other smaller parts too. But those were the ones that were the most influential to me because they were the lead parts, in which I had these solos that were really big. And so I remember the first performance, I sang My Cherie Amour, and I came out, started singing the song, and the audience started screaming before I even finished the song. They just were screaming at the fact that I was singing. And by the end, it was a standing ovation. And I was literally like, okay, I can get used to this. Yeah, I think I'm going to be an actor from now on. And that's when I devoted my whole journey toward acting from 6th grade. And thanks to Kenyatta Hardison, she led me to the Baltimore School for the Arts because she had also attended that school. So she helped me with the auditions and she coached me and everything. And I ended up going there, and then I moved forward all the way through my life since then.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so Delante, how did you make that decision to go into acting?
So for me, Marsha, it was basically when I got to high school. So I was an athlete in high school. I ran track indoor. And I remember one day my cousin came to me. He said, I'm doing this thing. It's at this theater. I'm doing something called a play. And at that time, I didn't really have a concept of what the theater arts were. I just saw people on TV and I was like, oh, that's cool. They, provide entertainment, but I didn't know it was a career or anything, an actual job you could do. So he came to me, he said, if you want to come by sometime, let me know. So I told him, yeah, I'll check it out. And we went to the Arena Players on McCullough Street, which is a Baltimore City landmark at this point. It's the oldest running African-American community theater in the United States. So I remember going there for the first time, and I walked in, and I remember the first thing we had to do was dance. So I remember I had to roll up my my khakis and my uniform up to my knees and just start dancing. They were actually preparing for a dance recital at the time, and I didn't know that they weren't doing the acting until a couple months later. So, I stuck with that for a couple weeks, and I did my first show with them, and I just basically fell in love with the craft. I mean, it was the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my life up to that point. So I sticked with the Arena, and I did, a few more shows throughout the school year and over the summers until I went to college. And then I, stuck in with the acting through, different school productions. The college was putting on plays at the time. I'd audition for those until I really took it into full gear in 2018. So, acting for me was something I picked up when I was a teenager, and, I haven't put it down since.
Well,
Yeah,
I think it's... Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just saying, I would be remiss not to mention that I also went to Arena Players, and that I started doing that in high school. So first it was Cardinal Shin, Baltimore School for the Arts, and then while I was at Baltimore School for the Arts, I would go to the Arena Players after school, through the summers, on the weekends. So that was a huge influential portion of my development as an actor, and continue desire to be a professional, thanks to the Arena Player. Absolutely one of the best places ever for kids in Baltimore that want to do this.
And the owners are still there. And, from what I understand, Larry Young has been involved and been on their board, Senator Young, for years. And what he always talks about is it's a nurturing environment. And while it's like family, they have high expectations for what you're going to do. So if you're going to be in the arena players playing, you better be playing right, because they take no prisoners from what I understand. And y'all sitting there with these big old smiles. That sounds like some memories y'all got over there. What?
Yes, they play no games. That's right.
That's cute. I mean, both of y'all came out with these big giant smiles and shaking your head because you you all remember something. Share a couple of little memories with us.
My goodness. I mean, listen, you mentioned Robert Chu. I mean, he was like the acting coach there. I'll tell you one thing, he never let you slide. Like, you know what I mean? He made sure you knew your lines. I mean, Yvette Shipley, I mean, Troy Burton, these people, they instilled like work ethic in you. They did not let you, just have fun, think that this is just silly. Yes, we had fun. We had a great time. But they also made you realize that this is actually work too. This could be a job. This could be a career. This is something serious that affects culture, that affects people. So they really just instilled, that in us. And yeah, they Miss Orange, baby, if you got in trouble, she brought you in that office and she will lay you out and say, I love you. Now go back to rehearsal, Yeah.
Yeah. You had the same thing, Delante?
Yeah, I was gonna say by the time I got to arena, that was tame. Like Jonathan, I heard stories about how Mr. Chu basically just like pushed you guys so hard. And by the time we got there, we were like the younger generation, we call it the youth theater, but we were like the younger cats coming in. And like we felt like we were getting it, but like you guys, I feel like you guys went through a whole different level.
I'm sure we did. Miss Orange famous line was, I love you dearly, but you can't act like you run the place. You can't think you know everything. You don't. She was wonderful. I love her.
Yeah,
she came to see me on Broadway. I'm still in contact with her today. She came to see me in Choir Boy. I mean, so did Mr. Burton. Rest in peace, Robert Chu. He didn't get to come, but he's there in spirit. He's in me. I still think about the things he taught me.
Mm-hmm. But those are legacy, right? That's a legacy that information came from a Black community with love.
Yes.
And you hone those skills in an environment that was safe.
Very much so. Yes.
Right.
We were able to really explore our creative sides and our artistic sides in a way that a lot of other kids, wouldn't be able to. And yeah, very supportive, very encouraging, and just beautiful. I'm so grateful to that place. I mean, honestly, it was where I got like training into doing performance. I mean, we really did full out musicals. We did not play. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that caught my interest, too much is given, much is required. And I know Jonathan was in a very unique situation. Jonathan, you want to talk more about this when you came back with for the Wiz on Arena Players. Excuse me, Center Stage, that is. And I think you came back to the Arena Playhouse to do some type of fundraiser. Please share that story because it's a very unique story.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I always was such a fan of Baltimore Center Stage. And like when I was at Baltimore School for the Arts, they would take us to see shows at Baltimore Center Stage. And they had a little mentee program in which we could go to their rehearsals and sit in. So I always looked at those actors as like heroes. And I dreamed of one day performing there. Finally, I got the chance to do the Wiz there. And it was an amazing experience. And during that time, I just had this idea that we should raise money for this theater that inspired me to do what I do. So I said, you know what? I contacted Arena Players and I thought it would be a great thing. I had the whole cast from the Wiz. These are all people that are in multiple Broadway shows, TV shows, very high caliber, top notch performers. And I told them how special that place was to me. And they were like, absolutely, we'll come. So we all performed, we sang, we did lots of different numbers. And we raised money for, the community because they need it. And it's so important to give back to the arts. It sometimes gets forgotten, but it really changes lives, truly. So I was happy that I was able to do that.
Delante, you look like you were about to say something.
No, I was just in agreement with everything Jonathan was saying. I think one of the most important things we can do, especially with Baltimore, is preserve the arts. I mean, our city is such a rich culture of arts that spans back decades, you know? And I think that where it all begins is where, you know, where essentially where we came up, the community theaters, where, you know, we were kids and got to explore our talents and see what it is that we wanted to do, and you know, really find where the craft became something that was going to be with us for the rest of our lives. And I think that's so important to preserve and protect.
That's powerful. And too often we are so busy. There's so many distractions, right? Something, the grass always looks greener. It's a little shinier over here, opposed to staying true to where we need to go and being methodical and deliberate in each one of those steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you both are in programs right now. You both are acting. And can we talk about what you're doing and how you like it and how you got there? Who wants to go first?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. All right, cool.
Okay.
So basically for me, so like I was saying earlier, I had picked acting back up in 2018. I was working for a real estate company at the time, and you know, I realized that acting was something that just wouldn't leave me. It was something that I was passionate about, and it was something that really got me excited to wake up in the morning every day. So I would travel back and forth to New York on the mega bus for auditions, you know, like 3, 4 a.m. Because in New York, you got to get to the auditions by 9. So that was interesting to say the least. But I was doing that for about 6 to 8 months or so. But then one day I was on, you know, this website. It's called Actors Access. Is where like actors go to like find auditions and stuff, whatever. And I saw this project. It was called Showtime. Had no idea what it was. Had no clue what it was about. But I clicked on it and I saw that they were looking for this, you know, 6-foot-ish basketball player who resembles this guy named Michael Cooper. So I didn't know who Michael Cooper was at the time. All I knew was Lakers, Magic Johnson, Kobe, Shaq, Kareem. So I clicked on it and I saw his picture and I was like, oh, we kind of look similar a little bit. So I was like, okay, why not just give this a shot? So I sent my tape in, did like some scenes, played some basketball. And then the next thing I know, I was talking to the producers of the show at HBO. Now, at the time, I didn't know, like, it's just really weird to find a job like that just floating out in the open on the internet. So at first I was like, oh, this is like strange. Like, I don't know if this is like real or not. This could be a scam. But by the time I got on with the producers and stuff, I was like, okay, this looks legit. Like, these guys look like they mean business. So, you know, I did the audition. I talked to them, and you know, within a couple of weeks, they told me like, hey, we're going to shoot this show. We want you to do this part for Cooper. So I was like, oh, that's dope. So 2019 comes around and it's fall. I fly out for my first day on set. I'm nervous out of my mind. I'd never been on set before. I've never acted in front of a camera. And our first day, there was like this scene where we had to play basketball in front of like 600 people for like a summer league game. And I just remember literally like being so nervous, like I was shaking on set. Like I just had to like grasp my knees to like contain myself. So I definitely went in on the deep end on my first day on set. But, you know, I'm really thankful for that experience because everything that came after it just felt so natural and so easy. So we shot the season at the top of 2021 in April. We finished up in October. We premiered this past March, and you know we got some rave reviews. So we're getting ready for season 2 now. So now I'm living in LA. Everything's bright and sunny and warm, but I like it. Yeah.
But Delante, you didn't share the story how you had to wait a whole year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the year jump. I heard that. And I'm like, now wait, what? Because you said 19 and then you went to 2021.
Right.
So we were
What
supposed to
happened?
shoot in April of 2020. So we had flown out. I've moved out to LA in February. We were going to do like a training camp, basketball stuff for like 2 months, and we were going to film in April. But as soon as I got out to LA, the whole industry shut down because of COVID. So we had to wait an entire year till next March to start filming. So for that entire year, everybody was just practicing basketball. So for me, I'm naturally left-handed. So to play basketball as Michael Cooper's right-handed. So I had to practice for that entire COVID year to use my right hand to like pass and shoot and catch. Like it was an intense training for a year, but I'm glad I did it because it just made everything so much easier when we got on set.
Well, the
Yeah.
beauty is that you still got to be employed. I mean, like for real, a whole bunch of people didn't. They had to shut it down, man.
HBO came through.
Right on HBO. I'll be watching them from now on. Yes. That's
amazing.
crazy.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's good. I mean, you had more time to practice. I mean, that was great. So then you felt comfortable when you got to set to actually do it. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But
He made that right hand move. He made that right hand work.
Yeah, exactly. Right. For me, it's funny because the series that I'm on, which is Harlem, which is
Yes.
Amazon.
And I love Harlem.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. It's on Amazon Prime Video. Any of you all who are watching or listening, please check it out. It actually was meant to shoot as well in early 2020. It actually started shooting in February of 2020, but because of COVID, it shut down. Now, at that time, this is a story that a lot of people don't know, another actor had been cast in my role at that time. I knew nothing about the series at the time. I didn't even know it existed, except for the fact that later down the line, I found out that one of my best friends was cast as my role in this series back then. And I remember him telling me that he got cast in this show and it was Harlem something. I mean, I remember him saying this and I was like, oh, that's amazing. And he never got to shoot it because of COVID. But it turned out, so it kind of left my mind because I knew he never filmed it. So I didn't really follow it. But then it turned out that he booked another TV show during COVID that took him away from being able to do Harlem. So they had to recast the role. So they had these auditions that came through my agent this time around because I had new agents at this point. So at that point, this came through my agency. They came to me and said, okay, this is part, and I still didn't put together that it was the same part that my friend played, actually. But I was like, oh, this is an amazing role that literally suits me perfectly because the character is a Broadway performer. And in the show, he was going to sing and dance. So I had to sing at the audition. I was like, this man is me. Like I read the lines. I was like, this person sounds like me. It feels like me. And so I did the audition. Actually, the initial audition was over Zoom like this, right here where I'm standing right now in this apartment of mine. I did an audition over Zoom. And then we had a callback, which was a chemistry read with the woman that I'm playing opposite, Shaniqua Shonday, who was one of the 4 leading actresses in the show, along with Megan Good, Jerry Johnson, and Grace Byers.
Oh, nice.
And so we did a chemistry read also via Zoom.
Well, wait. You got to explain what the chemistry read means.
Yes.
Because
okay, so,
I am not an actress.
Yes. So for most shows, when there is especially a romantic relationship or maybe a familial relationship, like a mother-daughter, mother-son, or something like that, they do a final round of callbacks in which they pair actors up that they are considering for the roles to see how they work together, to see if they have chemistry, to see if it's believable that they would be together or in love or a family or, or best friends or whatever it is. They do that often for TV shows. And so Shaniqua had already been cast because, like I said, they had filmed actually the first 2 episodes. My character didn't come in until the 4th episode. So they hadn't gotten to that part yet. So she was already cast. So they just had to see who will work with her. And so that's when they found out that me and her had amazing chemistry, which we do.
They do.
Love her. And I got the role after that. And, then we shot last year in March and April. We finished shooting the whole season, and then it was released December. It was a rave reviews. It was very well received, and then we got renewed for season 2, which we're shooting season 2 right now. So I actually just wrapped my last scene last week. So it's coming to a close, this chapter of the season, and we're hoping for a season 3. As long as everyone watches season 2, I'm sure we'll be back with season 3. I'm claiming that already.
So are you living in Harlem?
I used
are
to
you
live in
functioning?
Harlem. I did live in Harlem for many years. Oddly enough, right before I got cast in this, I moved to the Lower East Side, which is another neighborhood in Manhattan. So I do not live there anymore. But when we were filming the season, we filmed in Harlem a lot. I mean, because we want that authenticity of the experience.
Yes.
So we shot in so many places that I would frequent as just a, patron, like shoe stores, restaurants. I mean, we shot in these places, and it was amazing to go back there and be shooting a series that, with these people that I've admired. Whoopi Goldberg is on the series. Jasmine Guy is on the series. I mean, these legendary icons of TV and film that I get to be a part of. It's amazing. So we're shooting season 2 right now. That's going to come out. And then also right now, I'm actually in rehearsals for a play. So I'm doing a new play off Broadway with Second Stage Theater. It's called Patience. It is written by a Black playwright. It is named Johnny G. Lloyd. It's directed by a Black director, Jalen Livingston. It's an all-Black cast, 5 members, 2 male, 3 female. It's an amazing story. And we are going to start performances on August 3rd. So I'm getting very near to the first performance date. I just came from rehearsal and got on this podcast with you now. And we are going to start August 3rd through August 28th. Here in New York, if you're around, please come check it out. It's a 1-act play. It's a really great story about this Black gay young man who is a star solitaire player. He's like a world-renowned solitaire player, and he's making his kind of last match, and he's figuring out what he's going to do with his next chapter of his life. And that's basically a general gist of what's happening. But it's a really, really cool, great play.
So now that you all are situated in acting, you actually are getting paid, right? And enjoying the benefits of that, right? This experience. And so in looking at that though, what do you say to these young people who have these lofty dreams that they want to become an actor or actress? How do they make that move? Were you afraid? Were you hesitant? Was it easy? How hard was it?
Well, listen, as I said, I decided that I wanted to do this at a very young age, so I kind of have maybe a different journey than some people. But the key factor of it all, regardless of when you start, is work ethic and work. It is not just fun and easy. It's absolutely not easy. There's so many ups and downs. There's so many no's. You have to be very resilient. You have to believe in yourself. But in order to get there, you have to actually study, work. It's not just gonna, fly out of the air. I mean, sometimes it does. Delante had an amazing, pop on to the scene, but that is a rare, amazing opportunity. I've been grinding, doing plays, touring the country, the world, regional theater, tours of Broadway shows, before I ever, got a big TV show. And next I hope to be in movies too. So that's the next thing I want to do. But yeah, I just would say, you got to really take classes, study, watch movies, watch plays, study the greats, and do your work and believe in yourself.
Speaking of what you just said, when Delante had to sit still for a whole year, I used to challenge Delante all the time regarding check out plays, TV shows that he was not even aware of, and like Frank's Plays or Lynx, or Cicely Tyson was in East Side, West Side with Joyce C. Scott. So I said, look, when you win that award, you can say, I got some old-fashioned training by looking at some old films. I saw something the other day, which I sent to Delante the other day. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but it is a study of African American films back from the 20s. And I'm a history buff. So again, Delante knows we used to go back and forth or check this out. What do you think about this? I know Jonathan, you've always been exposed because I remember when you was in college, you was always studying somewhere. I remember the
Yeah.
time your mom said, he's going to London now. I think he thinks I'm a fool. He said, John said, no, I'm going over to study, Mom. I'm going over to study. So anyway, and your dad used to make comments about when you was doing summer stock, when you did hair. And
Yeah.
and so I said, what did you do? He said, well, Dad said we just be up on stage and just be yourself. So anyway, but again, I'm just so proud of what they've done. And one of the things I challenged both of them on, which will probably lead right into this conversation, what's your 5-year plan? What things you want to do? I know Delante talked about going to some type of behind the scene investing. I know Jonathan and I, we already threw out a little idea, which I kind of text him something that said, I got a new episode for this piece right now. So let's talk about the plans for the future.
Yeah. So, my 5-year plan, I want to be in, movies as well, TV shows, but I also want to start to get behind the scenes, like you were saying, MC. I want to get into film production and really learning what it takes to make a film from the other side of the camera. I think of people like Denzel, who is an amazing actor and now is getting into directing and it's just, exploring all facets of the industry. So that's kind of where I want to be in the next 5 years, is to start getting into the producing and start making more stories, about us, about people of our skin color, of our history, of our ancestry, and of our heritage, and bringing that to life on the screen.
Yeah. Actually, similarly, I actually I'm on my Issa Rae right now, so I'm very much inspired by her. So I actually have myself created a TV series, and I've written, created, starring in, and executive producing along with my two partners, Delius Doherty and Ahmed Maksoud. It's a series called Not Looking, and it is about the three of us are inspired by our lives, but three Black and brown gay best friends in New York City who make a pact to stay out of relationships for a year. So all the things that may ensue during that time, you can only imagine. But it is a series that we're developing now, and we're going to pitch it to networks. So we hopefully will have that on a TV screen near you. Hopefully HBO. That's where we're looking very strongly. So if you know somebody, listen, hit me up.
Most
Because that
definitely.
seems like a great home for this series. But we're open to other places as well. So we're going to be pitching that series in the coming months, and hopefully that gets picked up, and that could lead to creating more series as well. And like I said, I also hope to do some films at some point in the near future. But for now, I'm here focusing on this play while I can.
One of the things that caught my attention for both, I know for Delante, and I know Jonathan can talk more about this. When you first got into the business, was there a special mentor for you during those first few years? I know Delante has a very unique situation right now. He'll talk about, but what about for you, Jonathan?
Well, the first mentor was definitely Kenyatta Hardison. I'll bring it back to her. She really stayed with me, throughout that time, throughout middle school, throughout high school, and she even also came to see me on Broadway as well. So amazing, and she's still in my life to this day. So I will always, speak to her, and again, all those folks at Arena Players, and then of course at Ithaca College, I gained some amazing professors there. Mary Cosaro, still with me to this day, and Arnold Selko, lots of those professors there were amazing. But then once I got in the industry, I started working with these people that I had looked up to and was inspired by for many years, that have become mentors to me in lots of ways, such as Ken Page. I don't know if you all know who that is, but he's the original Old Deuteronomy and Cats the musical, and the original Ain't Misbehaving on Broadway. He's just like a legendary, and he played my grandfather once in the show, so we became close. So he's someone that I can call on. Billy Porter, I've become friends with, and he is very giving and gives words of wisdom, is amazing. There are these folks now in the industry that have been great to be amongst and helping me on my journey. So I'm grateful to them.
Did you all pledge any fraternities?
They had no time.
No.
Nah.
No, I had no time. I was a BFA in musical theater, and that is like a fraternity in itself, honestly. I mean, it's like a whole little family unit, and it's so intense training, like conservatory training, all hours, weekends. There was no time for me to do that. But a lot of my family did. A lot of Mr. Roddy said, and some cues in there too. So can't my stepfather's
That's funny.
He would be mad if I did not mention that, of course.
Oh yeah. You know, you couldn't go home. Don't make no phone calls unless you do
Yes.
all that right. Cross and dot those I's.
Yeah.
You know, I think people say that, you know, breaking into the industry is really difficult. And when you think about that, you don't see a lot of us Black people doing a lot of leads. You know, we seem to be background or second or third position, right? But how do we, as the viewers, the people who are buying the tickets, what should the consumers be doing? What should we be doing? Because I want to see more Black people doing more work, right? And somebody just wrote diversity, equity, and inclusion in visual arts is imperative. That's somebody from LinkedIn. And it's real. We need to see people who look like us in lead positions taking advantage of that. And so, what should we be doing from your vantage point? Not to create any negative, but we need more Black actors and actresses, and we need more Black audiences as well. Audience development is critical coming out of our community. Do you have any thoughts or opinions about that?
Yeah, I think at least from, you know, my side of things, for the time that I've been in LA and kind of in the Hollywood scene, at the end of the day, in Hollywood, it's about money. You know, it's about sales. How much money is this film going to make? How much money is this TV show going to make? So I think the best thing that we can do as a community is support our fellow artists who look like us and show that we want more stories that are our own. We want more voices that are ours. You know, Hollywood is going to make the things that make them money.
Okay.
So when we start to support what we see on TV, like Insecure, like Black Panther, all of these great, you know, productions that have leading Black men and Black women, that's how we can make our voices amplified and heard and start to see more of our own stories on the screen at a high level in, you know, the industry, let's say.
Yeah. I mean,
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that was one thing I definitely was going to say as well. But to add to that, there's a couple other, I mean, there's so many things that I think about this a lot. This is very, very important to me. So another couple things I would say is that we have to nurture young Black kids that are aspiring to be artists. We have to let them know that it's possible. We have to give education to them about it when they're young, so they start developing these skills to, you know, write the TV shows, to star in these shows, to direct these shows, to produce these shows, which takes me to my next topic, which is that if you are a person that is financially able to do so, you could look into producing, because those are the gatekeepers to these projects. If the producers are not people of color, more often than not, you're not going to see those people of color reflected on the screen or on the stage. So once we become the people that are making the decisions, green lighting projects, producing Broadway shows, then that will open our stories up to be told more. So if you are a person that has any interest in that, try to find a way to connect with someone who's been doing that so that you can get on that side and start bringing these stories to fruition, because that is really, really key as well.
That's a powerful statement. And, you know, too often we're starting to see some of these people who are, you know, buying up corporations. And so they're, you know, going into technology. And so you see different folks. What's the name of the guy that's trying to buy it? We already have BET.
Oh, they're saying Elon.
Oh, no. He's Black. And
Byron,
right. You know, how do we support a Byron? How do we create a Byron,
Mhm.
right? How do we as an audience pull together? You start mentioning some of the sororities and fraternities. What are we doing as organizations, that we have large organizations with millions of members? How do we tap into those pools to start looking at those alternatives, where how we can create the movies, create the theater, and pay for it, and employ people who look like us, and have writers who write for us? What is it that we should be doing? We're on here, but send this out, and this may be the spark that somebody needed, that's got some money, that they're just buying some expensive cars or another big house somewhere, versus investing it into a production that could very well be very lucrative. you know I, and what is your long range plan? How do you see yourself? You've started this path, and you're doing excellent. But moving forward, how do we make certain that you all have places to go, that there are productions that we are funding as a people?
That's right. Very,
Mhm.
very important. I mean, that is key. You said it. You said it right there. And that's why I started to create something myself. This series that I've created, Not Looking. That's where it starts. I said, if the representation is not there, I'm going to create it. Someone
Mhm.
has to do it, and then hopefully someone falls in love with that.
Right. Give
Mhm.
me a couple of things that you guys talked about, Baltimore School for the Arts, and you had Polly and all of that. So how do you look at these young people who are in middle school? This is your home, right?
Yeah.
How do you now look at, across this nation, at all the kids that are in middle school, and who may or may not have the infrastructure that you had when you were in school? What should we be telling these parents in getting these kids focused on the arts? So we talk about somebody actually funding productions, but then we also want to make certain that the actors and the people who are the designers and the makeup artists and all that, we want to make certain that they're employed too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Would love
Yeah.
your thoughts.
Okay. You want to go first?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think Marsha, it all goes back to what Jonathan said earlier about nurturing young talent. I think the best thing that a parent can do is, if they see if their child even has an inkling of interest in the arts, or even if they don't, necessarily have an interest or an inkling of, curiosity, at least tap in or dipping their foot in the water to explore and let them create in that space is so beneficial. Like I said, for me, I didn't even know the arts existed as a craft. I didn't even know acting was a thing until I was, maybe 14 or 15. So, I just think about what it would have been like had I gotten into that years earlier. Um, but I think just allowing young kids to have that outlet to express themselves and express their creativity and learn honestly who they are through the arts is so imperative to creating future generations of designers, actors, actresses, set decorators, all those things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You gotta, introduce them to the arts at a young age. So, and I know that can be difficult when it comes to especially theater, because the prices for tickets are not cheap a lot of the times, especially on Broadway. And
Right.
that's a big problem as well that needs to be addressed. There need to be programs to get these young, children that might not have the financial means as others into these spaces, so that they can be inspired, so that they can believe that they can do it one day. Because if you don't see it, you don't think you can be it.
Right.
And they have to really see that to know that it exists. So we got to work as we as the adults need to work on finding ways of, again, pulling our funds together, making programs for affordable tickets to shows for youth, and things like that. But on top of what these parents I think also can do is let the child be creative at home. Let them express themselves in ways they want. Let them, you know, encourage them to write a story and like act it out for you on Christmas. We used to be little and we used to do concerts on Christmas. I don't know if kids do that anymore because they're in their games, they're in their phones, so take that away for a little bit and let them try to be more creative, make them draw something, give them that directive. And like you said, even if they didn't necessarily think of it themselves, introduce it to them. A lot of times a parent will say, oh, you're going to go play baseball. They had no interest in baseball, but they send them there to see if they have interest. They won't know if they have interest until they try. So you have to just give it to them as an option, even if it doesn't mean going to formal training, which can also be very expensive. But try to find, these community theaters like Arena Players where you can do these productions on a lower budget where they get scholarships. Look for scholarships online, all these kinds of things that you got to be creative, and it's not going to be easy, but that's what's going to breed, the next generation of great artists that we need in our community.
Mm-hmm. And I like that term that we have to breed them, because it's growing you up. It's taking that moment. It's even watching television and being able to show them characters and what that character is doing and how they're playing. Those are the little things that can spawn into something much larger.
Honestly,
right?
It was like that, being young and like watching Cats and watching West Side Story and watching The Wiz. I mean, I was so inspired. Like at that time, I mean, I was in awe, and that is what literally made me say, I want to do this, being 11 years old and seeing that. So if I had never seen that, I would have never known,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I think is also interesting is that, Rod, you've been involved with mentoring young people for a while. And what were some of the conversations that you had to get these two men to a place where they're standing on their own? And I know that you didn't do it all, but you had a little bit of something to say to encourage them. What are some of those things that you said to support that?
I always told all the guys, there's a giant in you, now you figured it out. And there you can see right now, they are champions.
Mm-hmm.
And they would both tell you, I will always challenge them mentally. Conversations when Jonathan was in college, I would call him up from time to time and say, what's going on? What you doing now? Really? We will always have conversations just to see where his growth was. He'll say something to me, Mr. Carter, what do you think about this? Or how you feel about this? And, I was very honest and said, well, go where your heart is. Go where your heart is. So Jonathan knows that, and Delante knows this too. I'm the president of fan clubs here in Baltimore. Outside their moms, of course. I know how Chris would feel about that. And
she's watching. Hey, Mom.
And of course, Mr. Brandon, and of course, Mr. Chris, but of course also Charles' son, Charles. But again, I've always told these gentlemen, you're going to be the best, and just do it. And other guys in the arts, we have Darius Christian. Of course, Darius has been playing for years. I'm so proud of Darius. Darius actually was part of the Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett tour. And if you go back, you'll see Darius with the trombone. These guys are just taking it to another level. And they accepted the challenge. And it just makes me feel so good to see what they're accomplishing. That's all.
That's wonderful. I got to say something to you, though, Delante. Are you the one that was the STEM major? You were going to go into science, technology, engineering. Who was that? Was that you?
You just go to Bayer. He come to Bayer a few times.
Yeah.
And so you went from being an engineer to now you playing basketball on HBO. Come on now. So what happened?
Oh, man. Honestly, it was just... And I talked to MC about this a few times. It was just, I was going to Maryland. I was doing the computer science thing. I was pretty good at it. I was always good at math. But it was always just the acting wouldn't leave me. Like, no matter how much I went to STEM, the arts was always a part of me in some way. Whether I was doing like a play in my off time or like going to a show, I just loved the craft so much that I couldn't let it go. And I remember we went out to I forget the name of the production, MC, but we went out to that play you took me out to down in DC.
August Wilson?
Yeah.
One man, August Wilson, yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember just a sea of emotion filling me as I watched everyone on the stage. And I was like, I like computer science and I like STEM, but I love acting, you know. And that was when I really found out where the distinction was for me. And that's when the transition began from STEM to acting and into the arts.
Well, you're still shooting those basketballs now, brother. Those ankles now. That's them.
Yeah,
There you go. That's them.
that's
That's
amazing.
hilarious.
Wow,
And
that's
only you, Rod Carter, would come up with some foolishness like that.
Ray talked about that also. Ray Vaughn talked about it also in the office. He says basketball is STEM. Those angles.
Mhm.
But I just love Delante's story. I mean, it's so amazing because like it's never too late. It really
Right.
isn't. So like even like, yeah, maybe I started when I was 11, but there are people that can really get their big start. There could be 30, 40. I mean, you know, if you have that passion inside of you, go explore it, try it. It's never too late, and something could come up of it that's so beyond your imagination. So I think people should just really follow what their heart is telling them. Like Mr. Roddy was saying, like, follow your heart.
Well, I
And
think one of the
that's
funniest stories
real.
when I got Delante on that bus to go to A&T, Delante was shocked when I went into my so-called creative mode to get him on that bus. He said, Mr. Carter, how did you do that? I said, just get your butt on the bus. You go. I'll see you later on. I was very creative how I kind of took the whole circumstances, which acting is about. I know the scene that Delante, his first scene, the fourth episode, I asked Delante about this. I said, Delante, did you transfer that whole aspect of you getting that role in reference to what you showed on that screen? He said, Mr. Carter, you MC, exactly what I did. All nonverbal. But just tell him what happened, Delante, real quick.
In the fourth episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the opening scene in the fourth episode is basically me with my wife. We're trying to get to training camp. I'm like trying to make it on the Lakers, and my car breaks down in the middle of the desert. So I'm like in the scene having a panic attack, having like a nervous breakdown while my wife's trying to fix the car and make sure I get to camp on time. And it was pretty much just everything I was feeling in real life, just in that scene. Like just being on set with all the cameras on me, I was just like, I'm actually about to have a nervous breakdown. So let's just put that into the scene and see what happens.
The last scene when you actually tell them what happened when you walked out from the coach's office.
Oh man. So the last scene is so they have this the last scene is where I come out from the office. The coach called me to the office and we don't know what happened. It's the end of the third day, it's the end of camp. And I come out, my wife is waiting at the car, and you know, I just kind of give her this look like I just felt so defeated. But then you see a smile come and I'm beaming because I just made the team. I run over to her, I hug her, I kiss her, spin her around, and it's like the greatest day of my life at that point. And I mean, that was essentially what being on set felt like to me.
Right.
Yeah.
The euphoria of realizing your dreams for both of you. And the reality is, and I'm just so grateful, Rod, you're just so wonderful when the people that you have kept in your circle, helping folks just to be there and to be supportive. But, you know, too often we get sidetracked with all of the foolishness that I call it background noise. You know, it's just a background noise. It gets in your way too often. And to be able to drown it all out, to get that singular feeling and that belief and the strength to do your craft, because you're basically becoming a different person every time you act. It's like you're putting on a facade, you know, a skin. You're putting on a skin to be this other person.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
Yeah. There's so many lessons.
Go ahead.
I'm saying there's so many lessons to be learned when you do that. I mean, you learn so much about yourself by living through another person's experience, and it's amazing.
How does that impact you? Have there been any, and I know we're coming to the end, guys, but I can't help but ask this, so I hope you can hold on to me for a minute.
Sure.
But how do you go into that skin to be this person and then leave it at the door when you come in and close the door and become yourself? How do you make that like you're living with a twin? How do you deal with that, right?
Yeah, I mean that's really something because some people it can be hard to shake off that character depending on what type of work you're doing. It can be very difficult. But I think it actually is quite important for me to do that because it can be heavy. If it's something heavy, you don't want to carry that with you everywhere. So you have to, for me, use tools to get you into the space that you need when you're working, such as physicality, breath, music, things that will take you in and out, of a character. And then you also, like, when you're not in the midst of filming or in the midst of rehearsal or, in the performance, finding the things that are special for your life personally, things that you like to do outside of that, outside of the work, outside of what the character would like to do. But what are things that you enjoy? Like little things, like if you like to play cards, like do those things so that it brings you back to self.
I would say for me, in addition to everything Jonathan said, I had an acting teacher always say, don't ever ask, why would I do this as this character? Always ask yourself, what would make me do this as this character? And every time I approach the work, I always approach it from a place of empathy. Whether I'm playing like a serial killer or a priest, it's always about, for me, where does it start emotionally as a human? Because I think that's where the root of every character is. We're all humans, so we all gonna have a good, bad, and ugly side to us. It's just exploring, how do I take Delante, put him from point A to B to C to D to get him to the character I need him to be here. What experiences is going to make me do that? And that's kind of the, I think, understanding and empathizing with just people, humans, and emotions as a whole, that is very beneficial for at least me, but also actors to have when we approach these different characters and we approach these different life experiences. We're not judging them, we're not criticizing them, we're embracing them, and we're saying, this is the life I'm living for this amount of time while we're doing this production. This is me. Let's see what happens.
It's powerful, though. It's really powerful because now you both have what you have planned on doing and keeping yourself centered to who you really are. Right? That seems to be, I think that's the term, this being centered, so that you stay true to you regardless. Right? Staying true.
Yeah.
Well, any last comments or words for our audience or young people who might be watching, or parents who may be picking up the link and sharing it with their children?
Well, one thing I'm going to piggyback on what you said, because that really speaks to me deeply, which is being true to you. I think that is the ultimate thing that any actor needs to find, is that when you find who your true self is, you're comfortable in who you are, and you bring that self to every room and every character that comes about, you will always succeed, because there is literally no other you in the universe. Even if you have a twin, they're not you. You have a unique experience and a unique perspective, unique personality that makes everything you do special. So once you embrace that, and once I embrace all the things that made me Jonathan Burke, and brought that to every experience, the world opens up and the world's your oyster. So I think encourage children, young people, to be their truest self.
That's powerful. Delante, any last words?
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, you nailed it on the head. I mean, so much of this work and what we do is about embracing who you are and really coming to accept and love who you are fully, you know. Love the good parts of you, love the bad parts of you, love the ugly parts of you, love all those things so that you can truly be free in expressing yourself in any capacity. You know, I think my freest moments as an actor are when I learned to fully accept all facets of myself, even the parts that I didn't like. You know, that's just who I am as a person, and I love it. And in addition to that, I would also say you have to have, or you have to develop, once you know you want to do this, and once you know that, I almost kind of make it similar to saying, you know, you'll want to be an actor when you can't do anything else. You know, we call it the acting bug, right? It's like when the acting bug bites you, there's nothing you can do. Like nothing else will bring you the passion and joy that acting does. That's when you know you should pursue it.
Mhm.
And once that happens, that unshaking, unwavering belief in yourself is what's going to drive you to success. You know, like Jonathan said, there are ups and there are downs in what we do and in the arts as a whole. But the one thing that will always keep you grounded is one, loving yourself and loving all parts of yourself.
Mm.
And two, having that unshakable belief in yourself that you're doing something that's, you know, contributing to you, but also contributing to mankind as a whole.
Mhm. That's powerful. And
Mm.
Rod Carter, last words for you. You always bring in all these wonderful people that you have met along the way and keeping them straight and sharing with them.
All I gotta say is bravo, bravo, bravo. End of conversation.
That's not the end of conversation. You've worked with these men for a while, and just share with us just why you even do this.
Um, Many years ago, and I think I told Delante about this. Kirk Schmoke actually put me on a bus to go up to Yale University. This was before he even had College Bound, because he actually got the idea about College Bound while he was at Yale. And it was from that experience I was with a young man by the name Euclid Irving. And back in 1970, Jonathan and Delante, he planted certain things in me then about how I had to develop and come back and give to my community. And of course, with my spiritual background, Bishop John R. Bryan said to me when I joined Bethel many years ago, 46 to be exact, he says, "There's a giant in you. Now let's figure it out." And that's something I always carried along with all the guys I've met over the years. There's a giant in you. I mean, I've been blessed by the folks I've met, a Rhodes Scholar. When President Obama called out that gentleman down in Morehouse many years ago, that was part of my mentoring with him over the years. Um, Actors, MBAs, doctors. Matter of fact, last week I was out in Cleveland and I hooked up with one of the gentlemen. Of course, Delante know who it is, Victor, and we had dinner and just seeing where he's come from, and now he's a pharmacist out in Cleveland with his wife, who's also wants to become a doctor. So again, I've been blessed by that skill, and I just try to plant those seeds to transform those lives. That's all.
Mhm. But that's very powerful, and we're really grateful, Rod. And I'm grateful to have met you at Career Communications Group. And I've watched you for almost, well, 20 something years. I've watched you in the work that you have been doing. And I'm grateful for our friendship. And moreover, I'm grateful for the young people that you have groomed and shared with and supported. And so thank you.
Well, we came back. We started back in Alvin Ailey, remember?
Yeah,
Alvin Ailey, that was back in
yeah,
1992 when she was
right.
executive
That's
director.
exactly right. That's exactly right. That's
Right.
exactly right. So it's been more than 20 something years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you're going to tell my age, all this. Anybody ask you to tell you all that? It's just a little too much. It was a little extra information. It didn't nobody. They saw the gray hair. They already knew that the
It's gorgeous. Your hair is gorgeous.
Lord have
Gorgeous.
mercy. But thank you all so much for coming and sharing with us. I'm so grateful to meet you both, and I've been watching you all, and now I'm really going to watch so I can watch all the little nuances that you all do. I'll send notes through Rod to keep you up. But come back whenever you want. If you got something you want to talk about, let's come and talk about it.
Wonderful. It was a
Okay.
pleasure being here. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Mr. Rodney. Marsha, it was
Thank
amazing.
you.
Delante,
Thank you,
great to
Thank
Jonathan.
you all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Delante. I appreciate you all. Thank you, Rod. And thank you, Katanya Lester, our producer. And she's always handling her business, trying to keep me straight. You know, that's like pulling teeth or whatever. She makes it happen. So thank you all. And
Yeah.
hopefully you'll be tuning in, and we'll see you the next time.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you guys.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Great interview. Great
Thank
interview. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I'm trying to.
Okay.